I got to tell you, I always do this to myself. So I decided that if you're watching the video version, you may or may not notice that the screen is just a little bit different. The camera might look a little bit different because I have, basically a year now, I've been using this huge well, actually longer than a year. I've been using this really big G Master lens, this zoom lens. It's a 24-70 G Master lens on my Sony camera to do the live stream of this show, and it's usually fixed at about 30 millimeters. And I think it's millimeters. Is that what it is? 35 millimeter camera, right? So the lens is like a 35 millimeter, which is technically what your eye can see naturally, or that's what they say. And, but I'm like, I keep wanting to use this lens for other things. And we're getting ready to go out of town. My wife's dad's having his 80th birthday party. So we're going to cruise out there and visit him in Palm Springs. And I wanted to bring this big lens so that I can take pictures and video and stuff. And it's nice when you're trying to do a run and gun shooting that you don't have a fixed lens, that you can do a little bit of zooming to crop the picture out a little bit. And I want to get this lens off. And I have this other 24 millimeter G Master that's a fixed focal length of just 24 millimeters. And I decided, I'll just switch those out. Well, I decided to do that this morning, right? But like before the show. And so right up until like the last 10 minutes, I've been trying to get the length right and get the camera set up and get the lighting right again and make sure that the focal length isn't too shallow so that it works right. And it's a kind of a pain. But anyway, I'm sure you guys don't really care about that. You care about what we're going to talk about today. This is at Wednesdays, as you guys know, we tend to do or focus on areas of related to entrepreneurship, and more specifically, how do you start and grow? And I try and focus all of the stuff that we're doing here for early stage entrepreneurs. So people who are trying to get off the ground, they're trying to get to that $1,000 a month in recurring income. And I differentiate those of you who are building businesses from those of you who are just doing, say, little side hustle jobs. In my mind, there is a chasm of difference, or a chasm between someone who is renting a car out on Turo and somebody who is building a pressure washing business, right? There's a huge difference between somebody who drives for DoorDash and makes $1,000 a month doing that, and someone who is starting a dry cleaners company, or who's starting could be even their own delivery service, okay? And so I want to focus on those of you who are building businesses. And I don't say that to discredit anybody who's got a side hustle that they're using. It's essentially a second job to generate income, because there are certain people really, really need that. And if you don't have the skills, or you're not confident enough yet, or you don't have the money to really invest in funding your own business as a startup, then I'm cutting out a little bit. Is it just me, or is it something else? It looks like audio on my end is good, so hopefully it comes back in just a second. But and it says I have an excellent connection. So what I'm getting at is there's certainly no shame in working a side business like delivering for DoorDash. And I actually found out, I was on Reddit. I spent way too much time on Reddit. We're going to talk about Reddit here in a minute. I was on Reddit and was walking through somebody who was talking about how much money they were making on DoorDash. And they were making something like, they were doing it as like a full-time gig, not as a part-time gig. But they said they were making about $1,200 a week. And that they hadn't calculated out their gas yet. But other than that, it was like $1,200 a week. And a lot of people were like, yeah, I did that for a while too. It's grueling. It's hard on your car. But there can make a lot of extra money doing something like that. But where I kind of delineate the two is, are you required to go out and find customers and convert them, or find prospects and convert them into customers? Is that part of your job as your side hustle or your part-time business? Okay. If it is not, then I put that kind of into the side hustle category, kind of the second job category. If part of your job is finding people who would be interested in what you do and then convincing them to do it, well, then you are largely a small business owner, right? Even if you're just a one-man operation, or you're at least building a business. And so To give you an example, if you drive for Uber, you turn on the app, Uber connects you with a passenger. You don't have to worry about changing money. You don't have to prove to him that you're worth traveling with. We assume that you're safe because you're with Uber. We don't have to, Uber does all that for you. So that's more of like a side hustle or a part-time job than it is a small business or being a business owner. Alternatively, if you run a pressure washing business, or let's say a car detailing service, which is another popular one these days, as people are setting up mobile detailing, they'll come to you and detail and wash your car. If you are spending your Saturdays out putting flyers on door handles and passing them out and working on building your book of clientele, working on gaining referrals and doing all of that, well, guys, I don't care if you got one client right now. You're working on building that business. And so I'm focused most of the stuff that we talk about here on Wednesdays, virtually all of it, on those of you who are in that second category and who are really working to try and get something off the ground, get to that first $1,000 a month in extra income. And today I want to talk a little bit about communities, and I want to show you guys how I've been building my community, the Nomad Network, and the results that we've been able to see from that. Why it's important to have community and to have that as part of your marketing strategy, and why it may be a good idea, depending on what you do, to actually have that as your primary recruiting source for prospects and new customers. And so this came from an article that I read in Rolling Stone where they were talking about how big brands are moving away from influencers and moving more towards creating these like small communities of tribe members who really are brand advocates for them. And I decided to extrapolate on that and share my thoughts on this as it relates to you and y'all's businesses. So in order to do that, I want to give you kind of a little background on the internet and where we've come from and how internet marketing kind of has worked over the years. I have not been around since the very early stages. Like I wasn't around in the late 90s and early 2000s, but by 2005, I was most definitely involved in starting to build my first business. And so I know roughly the last 15, 16, 17 years, I've been part of the evolution that's happened online. And so but before we get to that, let me just start out by talking a little bit about how tribes get formed. Because the idea of a social media group, a Facebook group, or a Discord group is not a novel concept. We have been creating communities in as long as we've been human beings. And if you go all the way back to America in the 16 and 1700s, in Jamestown, places like that, where you went to learn about the news of the day and to discuss the news, to meet your friends, most people went to a bar. And that was kind of the hub where everybody went to create that community, where everybody got together. If you move to the 1900s, same thing happened in like local coffee shops and diners. It happens in other places too, church groups and things like that. But these were ideal places for you to go to meet people that you saw on the regular and that were of like mind, right? So you typically in your little community, you'd go down to the coffee shop. I remember when I was a little kid, I lived in a little tiny town called Sublette, Kansas. Population, I don't know, 1,200, 2,000, something like that. And there was one main drag that went through town, and right before you cross the railroad tracks, on the right side of the road, there was a drugstore. And it was a drugstore where you could come and get prescriptions filled, but it also had a wraparound milkshake bar in there, and then it had a bunch of like random stuff. So imagine a mixture between an antique shop and with weird stuff in it, and a Chuck E. Cheese, and then a diner where there were booths and then little places where you could sit along and order milkshakes. And my favorite was a cherry Dr. Pepper, right? Well, that drugstore was the place where everybody went. That was a spot. And in fact, my dad, when he grew up in that town, and we had moved away and we moved back when I was a young kid. And my dad had grown up in that town, and that drugstore had been there since he was a kid. And he used to tell stories about getting done with football practice at the local high school and going down to the drugstore to eat a bunch of food, eat pizza, and drink milkshakes in order to try and put weight on for the football team. And that was a place where everybody did. They all came into community. Well, with the advent of social media today, if you look at that, we still have some of that, right? There's still places where you go and meet people, but it's no longer a necessity for you to go there in order to be part of a community. Still have churches, still have potluck dinners, still have get-togethers and stuff like that. But now, if you want the modern equivalent to this, it's really more of like Reddit or a Discord group. It's where we go to find people who are just like us. Now, there's positives and negatives with that, and I'm not here to discuss that. I'm not here to talk about social media and how it's, making us less personable or all the negative aspects. I'm just trying to give you a background of kind of, we need community. And right now, there are a ton of communities getting built online. And as the internet became part of our everyday lives in the early 2000s, and particularly after cell phones and social media turned everybody into a vanity-seeking attention whore, a small number of people emerged out of that as influencers. And they were just people who, for whatever reason, had managed to attract a following that they had a high amount of influence over. And you saw them in every category. You saw people who had no talent, who just did stupid stuff and managed to attract millions of people who wanted to see them do stupid stuff, to celebrities and reality TV stars whose only claim to fame is that they're absolute trash TV, and legitimate experts who, on the strength of their knowledge and their skill and their communication ability, rose to the top and were designated ominous dominus influencers. And this gave rise to the idea of the necessity for a personal brand, and particularly as millions of coaches and consultants and self-described experts flooded into the market, seeing the incredible value that comes from having something like that. And I was a huge advocate for this, still am, by the way. I think that one of the best things that you can do as you're beginning to build your business is to focus on what type of personal brand you want. And here's why. See, as large corporations and large corporate brands, at the same time that these influencers coming up also saw the value in it, and they started hiring influencers and using them to promote their products. And that's not anything new either. Women like Paris Hilton have been paid millions of dollars a year for like a decade prior to this, have been paid millions of dollars a year just to show up to a nightclub or to a party, because they knew just the fact that she was there would turn their club, their nightclub, their event into something that the media would swoon over. But now, small-time influencers with 10,000 nobodies, Susie Q nobody with 10,000 people following her, can make a little bit extra money promoting jewelry or makeup. Sometimes it's just they get paid in product. So if you like their makeup, they'll give you the makeup. The very first advertiser I had on this show was a company called Black Rifle Coffee Company, and they were just starting out when they came on the show, and I said, I'll read a spot a week for you if you'll send me 2 pounds of coffee every single month, which they did. They did for years, couple years they did that, and it was a great little partnership. So those are some early ways that I was able to get paid a little bit for what I was doing with this show, was just brand sponsorships like that. Let me put it this way. So as that all is happening, and as the influencer, guru, online person began to really came into its own in really towards the end of 2017, 18, that time period, everybody started to get a little wise, right? We figured out that social media isn't real life, that those 10,000 followers that person has on Instagram could just have easily been purchased for a couple of $100. And we began to distrust the kind of know-it-all expert offering vapid advice all day long. The Gary Vaynerchuk. So I'm not saying that Gary Vaynerchuk is a fraud. I'm saying his advice is useless. It's a vapid advice given to very young people with this whole hustle and grind till you die sort of mentality. And so there's a big problem right now with authenticity, with everybody's trying to be the best. Everybody's trying to be the expert. Everybody's trying to be the guru, right? But at the same time, as entrepreneurs, we got a problem, don't we? Because we still need to market ourselves. We still need to be using the internet to promote what we do. And we still need people to like and trust us. Our brands, whether you're talking about yourself and you're selling yourself and your talents and your skills, or whether you're selling like hot sauce, your brand needs an ambassador. And if you don't have the money to hire one, it's going to be you. So how do we, and I hope that helps you kind of understand where we've come from on the internet and where we are today. Today, it's almost a turnoff for you to see the ads for people saying, hey, my one-step system to increase your Facebook ads conversion, or hey, come to me and I'll prove to you X, Y, and Z, and I'll show you how to easily get rich while you sleep, and I'm going to show you my secret trading strategy. Every industry has these kinds of people in it. And now that you see them, there's so many of them. It's instantly a turnoff, at least for me, to see that old style of marketing being done. It's one of the reasons I told you guys this year that I felt like I wasn't having the impact I wanted to have. And I felt in large part because I just looked and sounded like everybody else, and I didn't like it. It just felt grungy to me. And I wasn't real sure what I needed to do to fix it. And so what I decided to do was just to kind of change everything. And instead of trying to show up and say, hey, here I am, and here's my thing, and it's a really valuable thing, and I'm going to give it to you for free if you'll just give me your email address, I decided to instead start doing something to really provide value to the people who are on the list. And we had already kind of started our little community. It was originally called the 9-Figure Network. Then we changed it to the Nomad Network. We may change it again as we're kind of feeling our way through this change that's happening in the way that that I personally market and brand myself. But we had already started this little community, and it was a paid community. It had about 250 people in it, 200 people or something. It wasn't very many. And I wanted to get more people on my email list so that I could start sharing some of the stuff that was working for me and hopefully get some clients out of it. And so I started the Daily Alchemy newsletter. And if you guys remember last year, my commitment was to write a newsletter every day. 5 days a week, I would write something to you guys, and I'd put it out every single day. And I did that for a year. And I didn't hit every day, but I got 95% of them, I think. 95% of the time I was hitting. So, and that was a way for me to say, hey, if you're signing up for my email list, you're signing up to hear from me every day. And every day I'm going to send you this thing. And buried inside the letter somewhere was typically a call to action, like, hey, if you want to get this thing, you can go over here. But the email itself, the newsletter itself was valuable. And it wasn't anything big. Sometimes it was just something that was happening in my life and a concept that I had and that I wanted to share with people, or something that had worked for me, mindset issues. And people responded really well to that. And then I looked around and I said, well, what's another way that we could provide even more value? And I think as owners of companies, as people who are trying to recruit new business and keep people entertained and build trust and authority, there's almost this sense of content overwhelm where it's like, man, what else can I create for these people? What else can I do to be beneficial and to be valuable so that people will stick around and continue to want to do business with me and hang out? And I got burned out with that. And I said, I got this community over here. Why don't we just open the community up to anybody who wants to be part of it? I'm not an expert at everything. And again, this goes back to just shedding this false persona that somehow you're the best at everything. I said, I don't know. I'm not. So why would I pretend to be? Why would I not create a community where the best people in every single industry could come and share their knowledge and their resources with everybody else? Why don't I create a community where you really can find the best people and where those people are willing to help share what they know with you to make you a better business owner and a better person? And I had a conversation with my business partner yesterday. We were on the call, and I said, we built this network now. And I said, my long-term goal is, I'm not sure how much I want to share about this. I can't share a lot of it. But I said, what I would really love is, I would love if somebody came into our community and said, hey, I want to manufacture this widget and so that I can, so I can start this company and manage this widget. And I don't know how to start a business. I'm not real sure what I need to do, but where would I kind of go? And what I would love to do is to be able to give them a program that says, hey, here's all the really important stuff about business that's specific, that's non-specific. So every business needs to understand marketing and sales. Every business needs to understand operations or fulfillment. How are we going to get people? How are we going to serve the customer after they buy? Every single business needs to understand about finances and how to work their finances, right? That's something that every business needs to know how to do. So every business needs to know what its mission is, what its vision and values are. Like these are true to every business on the planet. So how do I create a program for those people and then on top of that be able to stick them into a group like an incubator with a bunch of other people who are already doing what this guy wants to do? Maybe they're not developing widgets, maybe they're manufacturing dongles, maybe they're doing 3D printing, whatever. But then I stick him in this group with people. Some of them are just starting out like him. Some of them are doing millions. Some of them are doing tens of billions of dollars a year and in the manufacturing business. How amazing would that be to not only have a track that you're going through, but to also have a network of people in that industry who can give you advice, specific advice to you, can give you connections that I certainly would never have because I don't do any manufacturing overseas. I thought, what an amazing community. How many people could we get to come be part of that community, even if it was just the community part? It could be millions and millions of people. That's millions and millions of leads that are showing up because they are getting value, not from you or from me, from the community itself. No longer do you need to be, the know-it-all guy or girl. You just got to create something worth showing up to. And you notice I didn't say anything about money. Every single thing that we've talked about today has been in the context, or building tribe and building community has been in the context of service. How do I create something so cool, so powerful, so valuable to the members that they call it home? How do we make it the drugstore, the coffee shop, the bar? How do we make it the place where everybody wants to come? Because there's not just value from the business side for me, but value in the relationship side that's being developed. I don't have to say, look at me, trust me. I got this thing. Look at all the people that I've helped. Look at all the millions of dollars that I've made. No. We build trust and authority because we show up every day giving without an expectation of return. And so I want to encourage you guys to think differently about the way you promote yourself. The other valuable thing that happens in a community when you build it, and now I'm going to talk a little bit about the money-making side, but I really wanted you guys to understand the context of this is it doesn't work if it's not rooted in service. It doesn't work if it's not rooted in a deep desire to help someone solve that pain or problem. But one of the toughest things in any business is figuring out how distribution is going to work. Every business needs a distribution channel. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, when you're going to market, you need someone to market to. if you're going to build a group, if you're going to build a list of people to communicate with who are highly interested in what you do, there's only a few ways you can do that. You can build a Facebook group, but then Facebook owns your audience, not you. You can build 20,000 Twitter followers, but then Twitter owns your distribution, right? Because if Twitter shuts you down, you lose all those. Well, you could go to TikTok and you can make 40,000 or 400,000 TikTok fans, but TikTok owns that audience. And so for a long time, the idea was, okay, well, let's get them off of those platforms. Let's get them into email. And then we can hammer them with emails about us and communicating through email. And that was great in the early 2000s because, dude, email was still kind of new and cool. It wasn't super new, but it was new enough that like internet marketers hadn't destroyed it yet, right? We were working on it, but we hadn't quite destroyed it yet. Now, today, 90%, 99% of the emails that you get are probably solicitation of some kind. Especially if you're like me and you don't do a lot of like back and forth through email anymore. Almost everything that hits my inbox is some sort of offer or pitch or junk mail. Doesn't work the same way as it used to, does it? Open rates. If you've got an open rate on your email above 25%, you're doing real well. And I wanted to create a new distribution point. So when I started the community, that was one of the things. I wanted to be able to just send a notification that says, hey, don't forget, tonight we got our free Winners Roundtable, which we do tonight, by the way, everybody. Winners Roundtable tonight. Just go onto the app and we'll post the link out there for you guys to join. Come check it out. Or, hey, I just did a new video, posted it on YouTube. Go check it out. Eventually, you can make some offers in there too. Hey, by the way, we've got this thing. I got slots opening up for my, my consulting. Got 2 slots. Let me know if you're interested. Just to be able to send those push notifications on the app, just to keep people up to date. Not flooding their inboxes with a bunch of trash or getting thrown into spam. Not making them angry because I'm there. But stuff that they really want to know about and they want to be involved in. Why? Because they're part of the community. I wanted a distribution channel outside of email that I could use to communicate with the people who did want to hear from me. Now, as a side note, I've always had pretty decent open rates on emails. But as a side note, I was getting probably 27 to 30% open rates on my emails coming into this year. And as we've shifted virtually all of our communication off of email and onto the platform, I do still send some emails just for people who aren't on there or might have forgot about us. My email open rates have gone from roughly 30% to almost 40%. Now we, on average, 37 to 40 is where we're at typically every single time I send an email. And that just goes to show you that because we're not hammering them with all this stuff that we need to be sharing about what's going on, and we're just sending occasional value add emails, people are starting to open them more, which is a really good thing, right? So how do you start one of these? Because a lot of people, someone had said the other day, they're like, well, Jason, we don't have, tons of money to start up these groups. And how do you do it? And how did you do it? We can't build our own apps. And I think people always, not always, be wrong to say always. People tend to look at where you are now and assume that that's where you've always been. I don't know if you guys remember all the way back to like 2018 when we had the Winner's Circle on Telegram. That was the very first community that I built. Telegram's free. And I just said, hey, do you want to interact with other people who are listeners of the show and who like it? We got the Winner's Circle. It's a Telegram group. You can come in, chat with everybody. That place, I was never on that one. But that thing apparently had a ton of people who were on there all the time, chatting and meeting other people who they know through the show now. After a while, I thought, you know what? I want something a little bit bigger. And I took a look at creating my own version of Facebook. And the problem was I was looking at it and it was like, to do it through some of these third parties was going to be like $30,000 a year. And I'm like, I can't afford $30,000 a year when we're trying to build this company. I can't just like throw down 30 grand to build a platform. And so I hunted around, I fished around, and I ended up finding a company in India that had already created this platform, and they would let me host it on my own Amazon servers and kind of design it the way I wanted it to. But most of the functionality was already there. That's what you guys remember as the very first community we built called the 9-Figure Network. And it cost me $3,000. So $3,000 was a lot better than $30,000. But I had to learn some stuff, right? Like I had to learn, how do I get it on the Amazon server and what does that look like? And I had to learn some new skills for us to be able to use that. And then as it began to grow and I decided that I wanted to open it up, we went to a different platform called Blink. And Blink was a better platform for us and it gave us a mobile app capability, but it was costing us about $3 per user per month. And I knew that if I made the whole thing free to everybody, there's no way I could afford, $3 per user per month because, get 1,000, 2,000 users. We've got almost 2,700 people on our platform right now. There's no way financially it would have been feasible to do that. And so I had to find another solution. And I went around and looked and I found a solution from a company called Disciple Media. And that's who we use now. And by the way, links for all the stuff I'm talking about, from Telegram to Discord, which is another great service that you can use to set up communities, to the one I use, Disciple Media, and a couple of others I'll mention briefly here, are in the description. So you guys can go check that out if you'd like. Disciple Media let us set up our own custom app, the app that you guys see now that some of you are watching the show on. They allowed us to set that up through them, and they handle all of the storage and the back end stuff, and they have a nice little platform there that lets us customize a lot of what we do in addition to the branding, and it has a place for us to put our courses and stuff as well, so that you can kind of get everything inside of the app. This is not probably the last place we'll be. I think we have one more move before we're finally done. And I don't know if that will mean purchasing something or having it developed ourselves, or going with somebody else who already has something that would be more versatile for us. But we've stepped up each time. Now, the Disciple Media app, we're charged based on how many users we have on the platform. And I think right now at 2,700 users, I think I pay around $1,000 a month, like $3,000 a quarter. It's about $1,000 a month for that. And it's kind of front end loaded too. So you pay a lot at the beginning for your first 500 users, and then everything above that is not nearly as expensive. But that's what we're using now. And if you want some other ones, there's another one called tribe.so. That's come a long way in terms of building a community platform. There's another one called Circle, which is really good. I didn't link to the one called Circle in the deal, but you can go check it out. If you're a coach or a consultant, mightynetworks.com is a really good choice for you guys. They have some different packages there that are pretty reasonable. And then let's say you just want to create a texting community where you can text back and forth with people. There's a great app called community.com that does just that. Lets you send bulk text messages out to people and also respond one-on-one to folks. So everything from a free WordPress plugin like BuddyPress, which is not as good, to something really expensive like a custom designed app and desktop and mobile app. Everywhere along the way, at every price level, there are things that you can do to start creating that community for yourself. And I would encourage you to do so, because I think this is where everything's going. You're starting to see Facebook lose its luster. Most of the people who are there just to talk to family or to sell ads. Everybody's selling ads to each other. People are moving their groups off of Facebook and onto other platforms. And there's no reason, if you're going to take the time to build a community, that you should be building it using somebody else's distribution point. Do it for yourself. Start attracting those people. And you don't need a lot. At the beginning, you're going to have to do a lot of the work. In the beginning, when we first got on the platform, you got to do a lot. I had to do a lot of posting. If you go on the platform now, I still do a lot of posting, even with 2,700 members, right? I'm still out there every day finding cool stuff, putting videos together, sharing to make the community a valuable place to come. But as we grow and more of our members begin to develop reputations and begin to be seen as regulars on the platform, like Rob Lindman is a great example of that. He's been an amazing contributor to our community. Drew Holmes, another fantastic member of our community. Ken Madden, another great addition to the community. I'm sure there's some ladies in there too. Those are just the three guys off the top of my head because I think they're like the top three. They're the top three contributors on the platform. But that's as more and more people begin to join and begin to establish themselves. It's a great place for you as an owner of a business to come and get advice and share resources and also potentially to do a little bit of business. I'm shocked how almost every week when we do our Winners Roundtable at 5 p.m., doing it again tonight, as I said, I'm shocked at the number of people, the amount of business that gets done at those. So be like, hey, I got a question about this and that and the other, and I don't know how to do this. And then sure enough, we have an expert in that area on the call who's like, yeah, hit me up later and we'll figure it out. Sometimes it's just advice, free advice that you give and direction. And sometimes a business deal gets done out of that. That's what I wanted to create with our community. Your community won't be the same, right? Your community will be different than mine unless you're doing exactly the same thing I'm doing. But what would your buyers, your prospects, the tribe that you're trying to create and nurture, what would they find interesting? What would they find valuable? And how do you develop a place? How do you develop the coffee shop for those people? How do you introduce them to one another? How do you make it a place that they want to come back to over and over again? Those are big, hard questions. See, the platform that you use, that's kind of the easy part. Making it a super valuable place for them, getting the right key people to start that group off and to really launch it, those are really difficult things. If you want a really good book on this that was done on how to create these types of it's called the cold start problem. It's like, how do you start a business or an app or something that requires a lot of users when you don't have a lot of users? So how do you make Uber valuable if you don't have drivers or there aren't customers who have downloaded the app and are using it? Like, how do you start that? How do you start an app like Tinder, right? Or a dating app where you need lots of men and women on the app for it to even be a viable product, yet you only have 8 people who've downloaded it. How do you do that? How do you do it? People assume that it took massive budgets, but that's not really how it worked at all. Uber started out as just a black car service in San Francisco. It was, and what they did was they put drivers who were already licensed and had all the insurance and stuff they needed on the app, and then all they had to do was send them people when they found them. So it's very small. Tinder started out as a project, I believe, at University of California, University of Southern California. And the way that they launched the app was they threw a huge party and they had everybody download the app when they got there. And that's how they exchanged contact information with people that they met at the party. Didn't have a lot of money. This was pre the hundreds of millions of dollars that they got to expand and grow rapidly through VC funding. See, most of these apps that you see today, most of the communities that are built today, they didn't start out with $1 gazillion. Nobody showed up and said, you know what, that dating app sounds like a great idea. Here's $10 million to go give it a shot. No, they proved the concept with almost no funding at all. And then they were able to attract the money to come in to really scale it. And whether you're looking to build something that you want to scale into the next Uber or Tinder, or you're just trying to build a community so that you can sell more garage doors, having that distribution channel is going to be critical, I think, in the years to come, so that you can position yourself as the person who always ends up top of mind, so that you can be the one who's always the welcomed guest, they always want to hear from. Because every time they hear from you, it's a value add to them. And so I want to just encourage you to get out there and try one of these. If you need free WordPress plugins, they got them. If you want to set up a Discord group, that's free. Telegram groups are free. You got one-way and two-way chat, right? Then you have, as I said before, like there's little apps that you can download that you can put people into, like we did with Blink. The opportunities, the options for you are endless. Start building that network today, even if you don't have a product yet. Because at some point, you're going to have to have something to sell to people, or you're going to have something to sell, and you're going to need somebody to sell it to. So start building that community today. And guys, if you have questions about this, hit me up on the network. Come and chat with me. I'm happy to share. If you have more specific questions, we can do a live stream and we'll do a Q&A together and we'll post it out for everybody else to hear. That's something I've been wanting to do for a while. If you've got any questions about this, like you're like, hey man, I'm in kind of this weird thing and I don't really know what I should be doing, or I've got this idea, but I'm not even sure what my next steps would be, and you want to do a Q&A with me, we'll do a live one. We'll post it online and into the group, and everybody else can benefit from that as well. I'm more than willing to do that. Whatever you guys need to get motivated and be confident enough to take that first step, to go from 0 to 1, and then from $1 to that $1,000 a month and beyond, that's what I'm here for. That's why our community exists. With that said, guys, I'm going to wish you very well. Have a great day, and I'll see you all on Monday. Till then, be safe, be good. I'll talk to you then.